Hello, digital world. Welcome back once again to another episode of Spliced In Later, the second in a long week of episodes, back-to-back episodes, the second of 3 movies that I hope to have reviewed for you by the end of the week. Apologies if I'm a little blah about this review. I do not intend to be. I'm quite excited to talk about this with you, but I have just come back from thinking I had been recording when I was doing this episode, and I had really gotten into the meat and bones of what I wanted to talk about with this movie, and then luckily, by chance, I did glance down and see that nothing was recording, so I didn't make it through the whole thing, because that would have really sucked, especially because it's late at night. We will cross over midnight as I record this, so when I say I hope you enjoyed yesterday's or the day before yesterday's review of Disenchanted, all those terms are correct. So we're going to push on and hope that a lot of what I was saying comes across again. Today we are reviewing Glass Onion, which is the sequel to the murder mystery story Knives Out, which was released in 2019, directed by Rian Johnson and starring Daniel Craig as detective sleuth Benoit Blanc. Now, I hope a lot of people get a chance to see this movie now when I'm reviewing it. As I mentioned when I was concluding my Disenchanted review, there's a small window to watch this now. Glass Onion is apparently the first in a series of Benoit Blanc murder mystery style movies that will be produced and released on Netflix. So Netflix has scooped up a potential franchise here and are hoping to have something that will keep you subscribed to them in the near future, especially as Disney Plus basically puts the nails in the coffin of the streaming wars. Who knows? Maybe this will be the only one we get. I don't know. But technically, this movie isn't actually released on Netflix until Christmas, until December 25 or 24. The week of Christmas, essentially, is when it will be available. Now, this week, for 1 week only, cinemas all across the world are releasing it exclusively. So for 1 week, from Monday to Friday, you have the chance to pop down to your cinema and see this movie on the big screen. Once Friday's over, gone skis. If you miss it, you will have to wait for the Netflix release. I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's business reasons for why it's a 1 week only screening. I know it doesn't have anything to do with qualifying for awards seasons for Academy Awards or whatever, because streaming movies are definitely considered for that sort of thing. Maybe it's just a little present for cinemas to help keep them afloat before they do eventually keel over and die. But I anticipated this movie quite a lot, so I wanted to make sure that I definitely got to the cinemas and got to see this, to be one of the first to see this as soon as possible. Because Knives Out is one of my all-time favorite movies. Now, I didn't see Knives Out when it was first released in the theaters. I knew nothing about it. A friend of mine in a different state had gone to see it and had told me that it was really good and I should check it out. The reviews were all over the place, a lot like another Rian Johnson film that we have talked about on this show, Last Jedi. People either really loved Knives Out, or they thought it was garbage, as seems to be the case with a lot of Rian Johnson stuff. It wasn't on my radar, and even though I was told to see it, I did not get around to seeing it in the cinemas, but I made sure to pick it up on DVD, and I watched it in the comfort of my own home, and I loved it. I loved it so much that it kickstarted my delightful obsession with murder mystery movies and TV shows. Very specifically, Hercule Poirot stuff. If you're frequent listeners here on the show, you will know that I gave a glowing review to Kenneth Branagh's Poirot story, Death on the Nile, which finally came out after a couple years of delays thanks to the wonderful pandemic. That itself being a sequel to his Murder on the Orient Express. Since then, I've also watched quite a few old Poirot movies starring Albert Finney and Peter Ustinov, and I am currently halfway through watching the ITV TV show Poirot, which is a lot to watch. It apparently adapted every single bit of Agatha Christie's Poirot material onto the TV screen. As of now, I've finished Series 8, and from around series 4 to 5 onwards, they upped the runtime of their episodes from 50 minutes to feature length. So when I sit down to watch one episode of Poirot, I'm essentially watching a TV movie. Good stuff though. I'm loving every second of it. And not just Poirot, any murder mystery that I can get my hands on that involves a bunch of characters all being gathered together, all with varying levels of suspicion, all with ulterior motives, all have reasons to hate one another. Then a crime is committed, usually a murder, but sometimes it can be a robbery or, well, whatever. And some detective or a group of detectives have to puzzle out all the clues and the red herrings to eventually unmask the perpetrator of the crime. Before I really dived into this stuff, I wasn't particularly good at guessing the solutions to these cases. I would try to think too much about what I was watching or try to be too clever. Odds are I would enjoy the reveal of the solution at the end of the content, but rarely would I have known who did it and how they got there and why they did it. Now, as I record this, having gone through all this Poirot stuff, I feel like I'm a little better at it. 9 out of 10 times, I'm pretty sure the most obvious solution is correct, and I'm getting better at going, all right, I believe this person did it, and I think I know because of this, and this. And a lot of the times, I will either sort of get it, or as the solution is being revealed at the end, I'm realizing along with the person, oh yes, of course, that makes perfect sense. And sometimes there are murder mysteries that are stupid, and they're entertaining to watch as well. At the end, you can go, that doesn't make any sense. How did they do this? Why did they do that? So all in all, it's fast becoming one of my favorite movie genres. And if anyone has any good recommendations for me for a movie or a TV show like this that isn't Hercule Poirot, let me know, because I'd be keen to check it out. Knives Out, I've rewatched many times since I watched it. I've shown it to other people. I shared it with my mother and my stepfather, and they also really loved it. And Mum also said to me, she was like, that's a movie that I loved, but I would never have thought to have watched it. And that's pretty much sums up how I think I approach Knives Out as well. If you don't know what Knives Out is, it is a solid murder mystery movie where an old man played by Christopher Plummer supposedly has died of a suicide. He is the owner of a vast fortune, and at the end of his life, his demise, all of his shitty little family come out of the woodwork to claim their inheritance from the will. But of course, this being a murder mystery, it turns out that he probably didn't kill himself. He has been murdered, and anyone could have done it for a number of reasons. Our main protagonist of the movie is played by Ana de Armas. She's wonderful. Knives Out really got me excited for any movie that she's in, because she played this wonderful heroine of the piece. The assortment of actors playing the suspects were all wonderful and all provided enough personality and character development to suspect any of them as being the killer, whether it was Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Chris Evans, Toni Collette, Don Johnson. Any one of them could have been the horrible, horrible murderer. But at the center of it all was this wonderful character played by Daniel Craig, a southern gentleman called Benoit Blanc, who is our Poirot of this story. He's hired by an unknown person to investigate Christopher Plummer's supposed suicide. What's really great about Benoit Blanc is he is the most relatable detective protagonist I've seen out of all of my adventurings in the murder mystery genre. He's very clever. He's just like Poirot in that his brain is constantly thinking, and what we think of as irrelevant, he stores away in his brain, and the cogs are turning until eventually it all clicks together, and he's able to sprout out all the answers to all the questions you had for the case, who did it, why they did it, how they did it, all of that stuff. But what's really great about Blanc is how relatable he is, because he is fallible. He's a goof. He's a dork. If I were a detective, I think I would be Benoit Blanc. Maybe not in the clever sense, but just in the way he sort of bumbles and stumbles into things. Sometimes he's presenting himself as a fool on purpose to let people's guards down, but other times he is genuinely flustered. He is genuinely confused. He is hoodwinked in certain situations. He allows clues to get away from him because he's not paying that much attention to one particular thing, because he's paying attention to something else. He's very emotional. He's very, very passionate and kind and caring. He's truly a great protagonist. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, I don't think, maybe he's not going to solve the case. Maybe Ana de Armas is really going to do it. He's just going to be along for the ride. But then at the end, when the killer is revealed, Daniel Craig does this great monologue where he puts all the pieces together. Knives Out is a unique murder mystery in that it's not really a focus on the actual murder mystery itself. It doesn't focus on trying to create a puzzle so confusing that you can't figure it out. If you're paying attention pretty early on, you can probably guess who the killer is. It's more a character study into the people in this family, who they are, their connections to each other, why they would be driven to commit crimes against each other if they were so inclined. That said, though, you can guess who did it, but I think it's not as easy to guess how and why. So the solution that Blanc comes up with at the end of the movie, for me, I was like, wow, okay, so that was important. That was a clue. That was a clue. Interesting. Little stuff that sort of throwaway lines, but come out to be rather important at the end of the movie. Knives Out was great. Obviously, I wanted it to be a sequel. Benoit Blanc, for me, I was like, make him the new Poirot. I'd love to see more and more mysteries with this guy. And I guess the Netflix gods heard me, because we're launching Glass Onion, the second Benoit Blanc mystery story. My initial reactions to the movie are that it's really good. I really enjoyed it. It was exactly what I wanted, which was another murder mystery with a bunch of asshole characters and Benoit Blanc goofing around, slowly unraveling the puzzle. It's a different beast to Knives Out. And if Knives Out is the Murder on the Orient Express style murder mystery, where it's a bunch of people trapped together in close confinements, suspicious of one another, Glass Onion is the Death on the Nile, which is a more extravagant tropical location with a closely knit group of people that aren't family, but who may seem like they have each other's best interests at heart, but actually deep down, they secretly all despise each other. Basically, Glass Onion, uniquely, the movie is set in the pandemic, in May 2020, so that's interesting. Basically, Edward Norton plays a very rich man called Miles, who has his group of very personal friends they've all worked together for years. Basically, to escape the pandemic and to get a bit of R&R and all that, he invites them all out to his special island, his rich man's island, where in the middle of the island is a gigantic glass room, which is called the Glass Onion. He invites a whole cavalcade of people, Dave Bautista, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Janelle Monáe, Kate Hudson. They're all supposedly his closest friends and allies, but in a murder mystery like this, secretly they're all screwing each other over and they all want each other dead. Now, they're all sent an invitation in a puzzle box. Weirdly enough, Benoit Blanc also gets one, who is despairing in his bathtub because he has no case to solve because everybody's locked down due to the pandemic. So Benoit Blanc joins everybody out on this island, but then Edward Norton says to him, "Why are you here? I didn't actually invite you," which immediately sets off the first, oh, okay, something's at odds. Over the course of a day and a night, everybody starts off as friends, but then start to butt heads. Reasons are revealed for why they all hate each other and why they could all want each other dead. They have been invited because Edward Norton wants to hold a murder mystery party. Of course, a murder is committed, and the party itself is real life. Benoit Blanc has to puzzle out the clues, follow the red herrings, all of that stuff, to eventually find out who is causing all the mayhem and why they are doing it and how they can be stopped. And that's all I'll say on the plot, because, as I say, I don't like talking about plots, but especially for murder mystery style movies, I do not want you to know anything before you see this movie. Now, it's not as good as Knives Out, I think. I've thought about it a lot in the last couple hours since I saw it. I think I like Knives Out more. but they're two very, as I said, they're two very different styles of murder mysteries. This is a little different than Knives Out. When it comes to the actual murder mystery and the puzzles and the solutions and all of that stuff, I think I prefer Knives Out's series of events to this one. But I prefer some of the characters in here to the first one. I prefer the situations and things. So take it or leave it. Either one. It really depends what type of murder mystery you're in the mood for. But Knives Out is a 10 out of 10 movie. Glass Onion being almost as good but not quite still makes it really, really, really good. Now the side characters are all really great. Like Ana de Armas, Janelle Monáe, I would say, is our main protagonist of the movie, and she is fantastic. I can see why she won an Academy Award recently. Some scene stealers in here are, of course, Edward Norton, Dave Bautista, and Kate Hudson, I think. I haven't seen Kate Hudson in something for quite some time, so that was pretty great. Dave Bautista, it's good to see him in something other than Drax the Destroyer, and Edward Norton is the usual classy Edward Norton. Once again, the star of the movie is 100% Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc. In this one, he's even more goofy and foolish and silly, and a bit of an oddball. But I really like that sort of stuff, especially when in the beginning he's wandering around the island spying on people, and he'll hide behind bushes and poke his head out, and it's just the imagery of it made me laugh. I would say that definitely Rian Johnson's direction pivots this more towards comedy than the first one. There's a lot of laugh out loud, silly moments that work to the plot. It's not take you out of the movie silly, but there are some interesting cameos and gags for celebrities which are particularly funny, and then some visual comedy it's something as simple as Daniel Craig hiding behind a naked man statue to listen to what Dave Bautista is doing in the bushes not too far away. The execution of the mystery, again, as I said, is not as perfect to me as Knives Out. But much like Knives Out, the mystery is less important. There's a point about halfway through the movie where it sort of stops trying to organically let the clues fall into place for the mystery. It sort of says, why is this happening? And then we do a big flashback, and the movie basically tells you what the missing pieces that you didn't have. You still get to the end, and Daniel Craig gets to do his dramatic reveal of the killer. But if you are paying attention in those very first scenes when the murder is committed, you'll know who did it. Brain was working on Poirot energy when I was watching this. I was keeping note of some things. I saw something happen, and I was like, okay, that's interesting that happened. And then someone said something that was a direct lie to what I had seen on the screen. So from that point on, I knew that's a lie. That person's the murderer. And anything after that, I was like, okay, I know. It all fell into place in my head. But it was still fun to see it organically be revealed on the screen. And again, it's less the who did it, it's more the why and the how. That's more fun to have that revealed to you rather than shock you with the identity of the mysterious killer. There's not much more I can really say about it in a general review sense without spoiling too many things in it. If I say this person was really, really good, and I don't mention this person particularly much, that can sort of give you clues as to who is the killer, who's the murdered victim, who's just a side character, that sort of thing. So I will say it is expertly directed by Rian Johnson. It's got a great cast of characters, a great mystery that you can work out pretty easy if you're paying attention, but still fun to see how it all unfolds. And then once the mystery is revealed and the killer unmasked, there is actually a big chunk of movie after that, as there is retribution on the killer. They have to find a way to confront them and make them pay for the crimes that they have committed. So that's a nice extra bit that you don't normally get in these type of murder mystery films. But all in all, hands down, Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc, a fantastic protagonist, a fun detective. If you enjoyed watching him in Knives Out, you'll enjoy watching him in this. I love his enthusiasm in the beginning, where he thinks he's there for a murder mystery party, even though he hasn't been invited. He's very excited to get his brain juices flowing again, the little grey cells, after being stuck in the pandemic lockdown for so long. And it's not a spoil to say that the murder mystery that is set up, the one that they're there to pretend before the actual one is concurred, Benoit Blanc solves that within 2 seconds of the murder mystery being announced as go. It's basically, all right, murder mystery begins now. He stands up. That person did it. This is how they did it. This is why they did it. Ta-da, the end. Which more than makes up for him not having that sort of reveal of the killer at the end of the movie, because he doesn't need to, because it's very obvious who did it and why. So you get your own little acknowledgement to the Poirot style murder mystery reveals, where the detective tells you all this stuff that you couldn't possibly have figured out because you're not nearly as clever as him. And he's played with great gusto. It's a testament to Daniel Craig's acting abilities that he can go from super serious ladies man, standoffish, lone wolf James Bond to friendly, emotional, goofy, flappable Benoit Blanc. Great stuff. I give Glass Onion an 8 out of 10. As I said, it's not as good as Knives Out, in my personal opinion, but it's still exactly what I wanted. I wanted a good murder mystery story with Benoit Blanc. That's what I got. It's definitely one of the better films I've seen this year by far, and it's scored a place on my top 10 list at the moment. And unless there are some major upsets with the last few films I have to see before the end of the year, I think it's going to stay on there. But we'll have to wait and see. There you are. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. If you do have a chance to go see Glass Onion in the cinemas, I would highly recommend it, especially if you have seen Knives Out and are a Knives Out fan. Otherwise, it will be available on Netflix at the end of December, in which case, if you haven't seen either, you might be able to do a double feature and watch them back to back. I highly recommend them both, Knives Out especially. As a murder mystery fan, they're some top-notch stuff, and it's good to have some modern day, well, not modern day, but murder mystery movies that aren't based on Poirot and weren't made 50 years ago. So thank you, Kenneth Branagh, for the Poirot movies that we get now, and thank you, Rian Johnson, for the wonderful creation of this Benoit Blanc character. He's fantastic. I'll be back in a couple days. Our next review is the newest Disney animated classic, Strange World. I've heard pretty average things about it, but that makes me slightly optimistic, because a lot of my favorite Disney films get average reviews from people, because that means that they're pushing outside the box and they're doing something different. And the vibe for Strange World does make me think of Atlantis and Treasure Planet. So we'll have to wait and see. I also could find it blah, but we'll just have to wait and see when I view it with my own eyeballs and provide my review to you. So be sure to listen out for that one. But until then, I love and appreciate you as always. Thank you very much for listening. It's always a treat talking to you. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.